It's time for more Manifesting Original Rich Bitch Experiences. Each week, we're talking travel, wellness, and millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. I'm your host, Ava Bilkey. Welcome back to the More Pod. I don't know about you, but every time that I fly, the moment that I enter the airport, I feel like I'm stepping into a mosh pit of first-time flyers. First-time flyers that appear to have no idea what's going on at the airport. And I don't know how statistically possible or impossible this is, but this is just how it feels. I understand that there are varying degrees of traveler. We've got our frequent flyers on one end who take lots and lots of flights. Maybe they're at the airport once a week, multiple times a week, even once a month. And we've got our infrequent flyers. I don't know, maybe that they're at the airport like once, twice, 3 times a year. And then somehow we have our first time flyers who at least seem like they've never been at the airport in their entire lives. And we welcome all types of flyers. However, it is very frustrating as someone who is at the airport trying to travel somewhere to encounter so much chaos. I understand that, in many ways, air travel is a privilege. It's not cheap. It's not necessarily even mandatory unless, you travel for work or for family purposes. But girl, were you born yesterday? Let me help you out. The other thing that I see going on right now is a lot of rhetoric online about the airport being a lawless place. A lot of people saying there's no rules at the airport. Anything goes at the airport. While I can see that maybe in some aspects, like you're having a Bloody Mary at 7 a.m. type thing, in most aspects, that's untrue because there's actually a lot of rules at the airport. There's a lot of rules at the airport, and it would benefit everyone to follow those rules, especially if wherever you're flying to, if making that flight is important to you. So this combination of realizations has really inspired me. I feel very inspired to talk about airport etiquette, the written and unwritten rules about navigating the airport. And a few episodes back, we did airplane etiquette, and y'all ate that up. So I figured, let's run it back. Let's do it again, but this time let's focus on airport etiquette before we even get on the flight. What are we doing here? Let's organize, let's assemble, let's streamline. So ideally, with a common understanding of airport etiquette, we can all just get to where we're going with a little bit less friction, a little bit less chaos, ideally a little bit less time involved. If we're all working from the same rule book, things are going to go a lot quicker, a lot smoother. So let's talk about it. Airport etiquette starts well before you actually arrive at the airport. It really starts at home. We've got to be prepping, we've got to be getting everything in order before we get to the airport. So, first and foremost, checking in for your flight online in advance before you even get to the airport is the absolute move. It's 2023. If you aren't checking in for your flight online or on an app, what are you even doing? Checking in for your flight before you get to the airport saves you a lot of time. And it saves you a lot of that panic, right? You don't want to just arrive to the airport and be like, oh shit, okay, like got to check in. And now I have to figure out, how many bags do I have? And are these paid for? Do I have to pay extra? There's a lot of swirl that happens if you don't check in online prior to getting to the airport. The benefit of checking in early is one, you're just confirming to your airline that you plan to be there the next day. So oftentimes you can check in 24 hours before boarding. And I always check in on my app. So I typically fly Delta. I check in on the Delta app as soon as I'm able to, because checking in early also increases your chances of being awarded an upgrade. So checking in advance, as soon as it's available, you want to tell your airline you plan to be there for your flight. And you also need to RSVP your plus ones. And your plus ones for your flights are your luggage. So you need to figure out in advance how many bags you're bringing with you. Are you doing carry on only? Are you doing carry on and checking a bag? This is important because depending on what you plan to do with your bag situation, you may need to arrive earlier or later at the airport than you think you might. Checking in early also gives you information like the boarding time of the plane. You'll be able to see what your level of security clearance is on your boarding pass. And knowing this will tell you if you have to arrive, within the recommended time frame of a couple of hours early, or if things look like they're smooth sailing, how far can you push it? The one thing that you want to make sure that you never see on your boarding pass when you check in is the quadruple S. If your boarding pass says SSSS anywhere on it, you're fucked. Not literally, but SSSS is a security clearance or lack of clearance on your boarding pass that stands for secondary security screening selection. Seeing this on your boarding pass is like doomsday because this means that not only do you have to go through airport security like everyone else, you get like the escalated version. And this doesn't happen entirely often when looking for who gets this designation and why. The TSA says people who have unusual flight patterns, such as one-way international flights or travel to and from, quote, high risk countries, or apparently sometimes randomly. I would argue this doesn't happen so much randomly, and it is more of a targeted thing because this has only happened to me one time so far. And what happens when you get SSSS on your boarding pass is you cannot check in online. So this is one of the only situations in where you actually have to go to the airport and check in person. And this is incredibly frustrating because, again, you can't save time by planning things in advance. I received this flag on my boarding pass when I was taking a one-way international flight. So I did flag the category. I was flying from the UK to the US, and it was just me flying, and it was a one-way flight, and I got that damn badge. And so what happened is I needed to get to the airport earlier than I was initially planning on because I couldn't check in advance. And then I actually had to get to the gate earlier because that's where they called me forward to do the advanced security screening. So if you have never experienced this secondary screening, it can include anything from metal detector to pat down to swabbing of your hands and feet, all sorts of weird shit. Basically, they're just checking you for explosives, which is a really odd feeling because you're automatically treated like a terrorist just because you have this on your boarding pass. I'm like, I'm pretty sure nothing about my life flags terrorism. You know what I mean? Apparently, just booking a one-way international flight. This is not an enjoyable experience. I went through the whole thing. I got the pat down. They swabbed my hands and my shoes and my laptop. And after they were done with all of that, I couldn't even sit in the boarding gate area. I had to be like in a special closed off section of seats where security literally stared at me the entire time until I got on the plane. It was not fun. It was absolutely not fun. So it's very rare that this will happen to you, but just know, just know if that ever does happen to you, one, you can't check in advance. Two, you need to give yourself a lot of extra time. And three, you're going to get some sort of very uncomfortable screening ceremony. Okay. This is why it's important to do all of our homework before we actually get to the airport. So, on a normal day, this includes checking in online in advance, designating how many bags you need to check, looking at your boarding pass to see what time the plane boards and what type of security clearance you have. And with all of this information, then you can make decisions about when you're going to step foot in the airport and what you need to do when you get there. So, if you are indeed a first time flyer, there are typically 4 steps in the process of going to the airport. And these are pretty similar regardless of what airport you're going to. So, the first step is always going to be you need to check in. You need to check in for your flight. The second step is always going to be you need to check your bags if you are checking bags. The third step is always going to be security. After you check in for your flight, after you check your bags, then you go through security. And then the fourth step, once you get through security, is you're going to go to your terminal and your gate. So this is the process. It's the same every single time, no matter where you are, where you're flying to. Check in, check bag, security, go to gate. Now, if you've already checked in and you do have to check a bag, that should be the first thing you do when you step foot in the airport. To be very clear, the lines for checking a bag are always incredibly long. Checking a bag is not an ideal scenario. If you're really looking to speed through the airport, flying with carry on only is the best way to do that. However, if you're going somewhere for a long amount of time or you have items that you simply can't bring in a carry on bag and you have to check baggage, just know that the lines are going to be very long. Doesn't matter if you get there at 4 a.m. or 4 p.m., there's always a fucking line to check your bag. Proper etiquette would say that when you are in line to check your bags, be ready. You don't want to be the person that like finally gets up to the counter to check your bag and has to then go like digging for your ID or your passport, digging for your boarding pass. I mean, we need to be ready, people. That is the proper etiquette. That's how you wait in line to check your bag. I'm not talking about like if you're like 2 miles down the line, but if you know that you're like first, second, third, fourth in line, just please get your shit ready. Every time you check a bag, they're going to ask you for your boarding pass and your ID. So please identify your boarding pass and your ID. And that will just make things that much quicker for everybody else in line. The goal is really to keep it moving. Keep it moving, people. We all have places to go. We all have places to be. Personally, when I have to check a bag, I always try to pick a line that doesn't have families in it. Like, for whatever reason, when families check baggage, it takes forever. It's like, how many kids do we even have in the family? Oh, I don't know, honey. Like, count them all up, like right now on the spot. Families checking bags are a mess. I don't know why, they just are. So, if you can pick a line where you're like, oh, I don't see like that many families, it's also going to go quicker for you. You also want to try to avoid the people who have carts full of luggage. Whenever someone rolls up to the counter with a cart full of luggage, you know they're going to be trying to hustle and nickel and dime the agent, asking if they can check bags for free. No, babe, you have to pay per bag. That's just how it works. This is one of the written rules of the airport. And I didn't make them. I'm just reminding you of those rules. So if you can avoid the families and then the groups of people with like the luggage carts, it will also be a better experience for you. But either way, just have your ID ready, have your boarding pass ready, and ideally also know that your bag fits the limitations. That's the other holdup when people check bags is they have overweight bags. They have to like open them up, take things out in the middle of the airport. That's never a good look. So this really goes back to doing your homework before you get to the airport to again just improve the process and the experience for everyone. So once you've checked in for your flight, you've checked your bags if you have them, then you go over to security. And depending on the airport, you'll see at least two different lines for security. You'll see the standard security line, and then you'll see a TSA pre check line. At some airports, you'll see more than that. So you'll want to know what security clearance you have. Are you general? You're going to go through the normal line. Do you have TSA pre check? Do you have clear? Do you have clear and TSA pre check? At my home airport, those are all separate security lines. So you want to know which one you have before you get in line. And the way you know is by looking at your boarding pass. So you want to read the signs for security and you want to get in the right line. And also, this is another place where you're going to be asked for your boarding pass and your ID or your passport. So again, same as checking a bag, you want to have those items ready. So when you get up to the counter, you can just hand over your documents and get on with your day. When it comes to actually going through security, this is where things will get a little bit confusing depending on what level of security clearance you do have and what that requires of you. So, if you have TSA pre check, for example, you probably don't have to take off your shoes. You also don't have to take your laptop out of the bag. And you also don't have to take your liquids out of the bag. So, TSA pre check is essentially something that you can apply for as a traveler with no alarms. And you essentially go through a background check and get approval to have a lighter screening at the airport when you fly. So you won't have to take off your shoes. You won't have to take your laptop out of the bag. That's really nice. Sometimes this gets confusing though, because say you used to have pre check, you don't have pre check now, or something happens, the rules might change. You might have to take off your shoes if you're going through standard security clearing. You might have to put your liquids in their own bin. This is where you really just have to listen to the staff, the people who are working security wherever you are, and just follow their rules. You might have to pivot a little bit, but there are rules that apply across the board, regardless of what your security clearance is. First and foremost, you can't bring water through security. You cannot bring a water bottle full of water or a juice or a coffee through security, period. Like, you have to empty out your water bottle. And this has been a rule for 20 years. TSA was established as a result of 9/11. Every liquid that you bring through security has to be 3.4 ounces or less, and it has to be in the 311 rule. So the two rules that everyone has to follow are one, no liquids over 3.4 ounces. So no water bottles, no coffees, no juices, none of that. And two, you have to follow the 311 rule. Now, the TSA 311 rule is all carry on liquids have to be 3.4 ounces or less. They have to all be together in one quart size bag, and you only get one bag per person. So we have the 311 rule. And proper airport etiquette is to have already prepared your bag of liquids, right? They're all together, they're all in the bag, they all fit. You're not trying to like squish a 5 ounce bottle of lotion into your quart size bag. You're following the rules. This is the proper airport etiquette. And I don't care if like one time you flew and nobody grabbed your water bottle and you got through the line with it. Like, I don't care if you have your one off little stories about, oh, well, last time I did it and nobody checked, or like I didn't put all of my eye drops in the baggie and they didn't confiscate them. Look, the more we can all follow the 311 rule, the better chance that there's not going to be any stupid hangups. And by stupid hangups, I mean you deciding not to follow the rules and then being pulled for security screening because you didn't put your liquids in the bag, and then you just hold up the whole line. You know, the airport etiquette is really the herd mentality. Like, we have to do it for the herd. And I think where most people get hung up is they don't really know what's counting as a liquid. So, the liquid, by definition, from TSA, is any liquid, gel, cream, paste, or aerosol. I think when we think about obvious liquids, these are things like shampoo and conditioner and body wash, very clearly liquids. I think when we don't think about liquids and when we get confused and then we have to end up throwing our things away at security is like toothpaste, lip gloss, mascara, eye drops, concealer, peanut butter. If you travel with snacks, you've got pouches of nut butter. That's a liquid. That's a liquid. It has to be in your 311 bag. So we want to be doing our homework here. And we want to have all of our liquids together in that bag in such a way that security doesn't even blink. That's the goal, right? You don't even cause a blink. Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, ma'am. Go on. You're good. That's what we want when we go through security. As a totally related tangent, though, I will say airport etiquette for TSA workers: don't scream at us. Absolutely do not scream at us. When you start screaming, laptops out of the bag, take off your shoes, throw away your water, that is not helping anybody. That does not help anybody. In fact, yelling actually slows people down. You're freaking us out. You are freaking us out when you're screaming. We're scared. We're slowing down. We can't think straight. We forget how to take our shoes off. Don't do that. Do not do that. Do not yell at us. That is the etiquette I would like to suggest for security staff. I'm like, I'm sorry, are we at jail or are we at the airport? You know, like those should feel like very different experiences. I don't think you need to yell. We're at the airport. That's very unnecessary. But circling back to the etiquette for us, having your liquids together is really important. And this is really for us because there's nothing worse than having your makeup thrown in the trash. That is heartbreaking. That is absolutely heartbreaking. If you forgot to put your foundation in your liquids bag and it doesn't fit, they throw it in the trash, you might actually cry. It also sucks, if they're like throwing away your snacks or they're throwing away your hand sanitizer. You want to make sure you have all your things together so that a TSA does not confiscate your belongings because you'll never get them back. And it sucks. When it comes your time to actually finally walk through the security x-ray or metal detector, x-ray, whatever it may be at the airport you're flying through, go to the end of the conveyor belt. When your items are going through the x-ray, don't stop at the very beginning of the chute to like pick up your things. Walk to the end of the conveyor belt and grab your bag at the very end. That is the proper airport etiquette. That one has really gotten lost somewhere along the way. Also, for the love of God, put your fucking bin away. Stack your bin when you take your shit out of the bin. That is a very simple thing to do. And again, it makes the process go smoother for everybody. So when you're through security, go to the very end of where you can grab your items. And after you grab your items, stack the bin. That is the proper airport etiquette. It's funny that a process that takes literally 5 minutes deserves so much explanation, but it's true. And I think that the more often you fly, the more often you go through security, obviously, the easier it gets. It can be kind of confusing because, again, depending on the airport, especially if you're in different countries, things will go like a little bit differently, but generally the same. But over time, this definitely gets easier. I will say, most importantly, be nice when you're going through security, follow the rules, and just keep it moving. You know, even if you don't quite know what you're doing, have the energy of somebody that knows what they're doing. I think the more that you act like you know what's going on, the less attention you draw to yourself, right? And the less attention you draw to yourself when you're going through airport security, the better. Really, you just want to arrive, put your things through security, walk through that x ray machine with all of the confidence of the tube girl, and be on your merry way. I'd encourage you to sign up for TSA PreCheck or Global Entry because not having to take off your shoes, not having to take your laptop out of the bag, not having to separate your liquids, it's so nice. It is so nice. I personally travel with TSA PreCheck and Clear, and they stack. So I never have to wait in line ever to go through security. It takes me literally on average like 5 minutes to get through. Not having to wait in line is, again, such a time saver. And that's a theme here. Where can you save time? You can save time by checking in online. You can save time by expediting your security process, by having clearance, or at least just knowing what the fuck you're doing, not having to throw away things, not having to stop a security officer for an inspection, my God, and just getting on with it. So I think that security at the airport can be as pleasant or unpleasant as you make it. Now, after we go through the first 3 steps here, the only other thing you have to do is navigate to your terminal and or your gate. And that's pretty easy. From here, it's very much a choose your own adventure. Not as many rules, right? Or at least not as many written rules. Most of the written rules happen, with your check-in, your baggage, and security. Once you get through security, airport etiquette really comes down to the unwritten rules. And I think this is the area where people are like, there's no rules in the airport. Time doesn't exist. I can do whatever the fuck I want. Yes and no. Sure, you can choose to have a Bloody Mary at 7 a.m., but you can't act like a total fucking fool. I think people forget that you can be denied entrance on your flight. If you decide to get drunk in the airport, you do you, but you can actually be denied entrance onto the plane. So I just think that there's a lot that you need to think about if that's the mindset. In my opinion, between security and boarding, do whatever you want, but don't make a scene. So if you are going to drink in the airport, drink responsibly. I think that when you're walking and you're navigating through the airport, it's important to mind your bags. I don't know if you've noticed this, but some people, they're dragging their luggage at like a full wingspan behind them with no regard for whose ankles they're tapping along the way. That's one of the things that drives me absolutely nuts. So minding your bags. Also knowing that there's a walk and a stand lane on most moving walkways. Proper etiquette would say if you're standing, don't take up the whole walkway. That's one of the other things that drives me nuts. Stand in the stand lane and walk in the walk lane. And if you hear me coming up behind you, strut my stuff, roll in my bag, and it sounds like I've got someplace to be, it's because I do. And if you're not in a hurry, like step aside, you know? Everybody has a different amount of time before they have to get on their flight. And so, as a general rule, I think it's important to let people pass you if they're moving fast. You know, if you're moving slow, do so, but not in a way that blocks the flow of traffic. Another really important unwritten rule is if you see somebody that needs help, like stop to help them. If you see someone navigating through the airport that's like struggling to keep it together, maybe they've got like too many bags and not enough hands, or, maybe they're struggling, like offer to help somebody. If someone can't lift their bag, offer to do it for them. Some people are going to very naturally be able to navigate the airport more easily than others. And I think it's really important to also be considerate of people who might need help. Along with that, it's proper airport etiquette to give up your seat for elders. So if you're on the tram going from terminal to terminal, or if you're seated waiting at the gate and you notice somebody who needs a seat, give it to them. It's like bus rules. Those are the types of things that I think would make the airport experience more enjoyable for all of us. And while everybody, has their own thing going on, it is a place where we are all working towards our common but separate goals of just getting on our flights and getting where we're supposed to be. So I think the more we can mind our own business, do our homework, be prepared, keep it moving, the better off everyone's going to be. In summary, when it comes to airport etiquette, written and unwritten rules, do your homework. Look into things in advance so you can save yourself time. Mind your own business and be a good human. I think that's it. The airport is a place where following the rules benefits you and everyone else around you. And the more we can just stick to our shit, get through it, the more enjoyable everyone's travel experience is going to be. So there we have it. Airport etiquette. We've got our pre-arrival, we've got getting to the airport, getting through security, getting to the gate. It really is the same process anywhere you go. Hopefully, just knowing that can help eliminate some of the chaos that can easily come along with travel and just make it a better experience. And if you can, if it's worth it to you based on the frequency of your travel, take steps to get TSA PreCheck or global entry or clear or anything that's just going to make your travel experience that much easier. Get a credit card that allows you to check, up to a few bags for free. Look for opportunities to enhance your own travel experience and really just stick to it. Travel is really actually more of a practice than anything. I think that the more we know, the more we experience it, the more that we practice travel, the more painless the process becomes. You can kind of get into more of a flow state with things and you stop resisting so much. And I think when you stop resisting, you start fighting like the fact that you do have to take off your shoes, for example, and just accept it as part of the flow of the practice of travel. It can really change your whole viewpoint on it. And having and maintaining a level of airport etiquette is definitely part of that practice. So I hope you found something valuable in today's episode. If not valuable, hopefully entertaining. So let's transition into this week's Love It or Leave It. What I'm absolutely loving this week is a TV show called Trixie Motel. Now, I started watching Trixie Motel for research purposes, along with a few other travel shows. And I had to sign up for Discovery Plus through Amazon Prime to watch it. But the Trixie Motel is a 7-part series based on Trixie Motel, drag queen extraordinaire, buying a motel in Palm Springs and renovating it. This show is so fun to watch because it's really creative. It's been a lot of years since I've watched any sort of like HGTV or like home renovation shows. When they first came out, I was obsessed. Like when TLC channel debuted in my household growing up when I was like a preteen, I fucking loved those home shows. The flip shows, the fix it up at shows, whatever they were called, I don't even remember, but I loved those interior design shows. And then I kind of got sick of them because with a lot of reality TV, after watching a certain amount of it, it's a very similar formula. It's like, okay, now I get it, the homeowner surprise. It's just after a while, it can get a little boring. But it's been many, many years since I've watched anything interior design or like renovation related. And I loved watching the Trixie Motel. Each of the 7 rooms in this motel are iconic. They all have separate themes and designs. They're super kitschy, but they're super well done. They're super creative. And I just found it really inspiring. And so, if you like interior design or you like travel related shows or you love drag, like the Trixie Motel is a great show. You should check it out. Love. But oh my God, babes, what I am not fucking loving this week is the changes that Delta made to its loyalty program. I don't know if you've seen this, if you've heard this yet, but this week Delta totally overhauled its loyalty program and it's not good. It's not looking good. And to be completely honest with you, I haven't even like fully read all of the updates because I'm like, I just can't take this sort of heartburn right now. Like, I don't have the capacity for heartbreak. But Delta and Amex just made huge revisions to the Sky Miles program and have made it significantly harder for anyone to gain status. And most people that I know are going to be losing their status. This is really disappointing because people who choose to earn status and maintain status, they're really committing to a brand. And when a brand all of a sudden says, you know what, we're actually going to make it 6 times harder for you to have status, that is a terrible move, in my opinion. I mean, to give you an example, you used to be able to earn Delta status with a few different qualifications. So there's a spend component on your credit card, and there's a mileage component. So it's based off of miles flown or flight segments flown as the first tier. And then as a second tier is based on dollars. So either dollars spent on flights or dollars spent on your credit card. They've gotten rid of the flight segments and the flight distance. So they've really just quote unquote simplified the program down to dollars spent. And it used to be on my Delta credit card, I'd get 1 mile per dollar spent. Now, if I'm not mistaken, it's 1 mile per $20 spent. That's a huge fucking difference. And that difference means that if you're somebody who earned status through spend, which is me because, while I fly and I travel, I I slow travel. So I'm not taking a huge volume of flights, but rather a small volume of flights, and I'm staying for longer periods. So basically, for someone like myself and for other people who earn based on spend, that's no longer possible. They adjusted the thresholds as well. So, like for silver status, which silver gets you absolutely nothing, but for silver status, it's going to be like a $6,000 spend. But $6,000, if we do the math, and don't quote me because I'm not good at math, times 20, that's $120,000 required spend on your credit card to get silver. That's not going to fucking happen. Anyways, like I said, I'm not as well read up on it as I could be because I don't want to be. I think the interesting thing is what happens next. And I know a lot of people are saying, like, well, I'm going to leave, like, screw Delta, I'm going to go somewhere else. But the thing is, a brand only does something like this when they know that they're essentially the only choice. Babe, where are you going to go? Frontier? Spirit? United? Southwest? You came and pick a fucking seat? I don't think so. I think people are still going to fly Delta because as a US based carrier, it's one of the best, even with no loyalty program. So this is really terrible news. I'm super upset, as most of us are who have been loyal to Delta for years. I hope they do something to roll back these changes because it's not good. But that's about it. I mean, that's a very long tangent on Delta, but we are loving airport etiquette. We're loving the Trixie Motel show. We are leaving Delta's new changes to their loyalty program. And that's all I've got. It's kind of a somber note to end on, but it is what it is, you know? Thank you for listening. I appreciate the time that we spend together every single week. It means a lot to me. I hope that you found this helpful or entertaining in some way. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review. Leave a 5-star review on Apple, a 5-star rating on Spotify. Let me know what you liked. And I'll see you next week. Listen to the More Pod every Wednesday as I share the things that make me more me and discover a thing or two to make you more you.